Hey guys, tomorrow in the United States, we celebrate President's Day. So today, I just want to share some truths about the presidents that we are celebrating that our children are not learning in public schools. Now, thankfully, I live in the great state of Florida, and our great governor, Ron DeSantis, banned the teaching of critical race theory, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it was a curriculum developed by Marxist professors to get American kids to hate America. And it's been successfully used in many blue states. But even though they don't teach these lies about America, they leave out a lot of truth still. So I'm going to share some truths, and you may have heard some of these stories, you may not. But please, pass them on to your children and your grandchildren. This is very important that our children know why America is an exceptional nation and why America is the greatest nation ever formed by God Almighty. So it used to be we celebrate George Washington's birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday, two of our greatest presidents in many people's opinion. Now we kind of blend them together and call it President's Day. So I'm going to share some things about each president. So George Washington, writing a letter, I always say history, I'm a self-taught history buff, and I always like to go to the original source, what the man in history we're studying actually said, or those closest around him. We actually have letters written by George Washington to his wife. And in one of his letters, he wrote this. This was at the Battle of Monongahela. And he wrote this after the battle. But by the all-powerful dispensations of Providence, I have been protected beyond all human probability or expectations. For I had 4 bullets through my coat, and 2 horses shot under me, yet escaped unhurt, although death was leaving my companions on every side of me. His men, let me see if I can brighten this. I got a new thing here. Yeah, let me know in the comments if it's better, brighter, or darker. But his men wrote to their families that General George Washington rode out ahead of them. And although people were getting shot all around him, he confidently said, "Follow me, guys," or in his words, "Parade with me. The victory is ours." He was confident they would win that day, and he was right, they won. So this general, George Washington, was ahead. He was leading the pack, and everyone around him was getting shot. He got shot 4 times, but miraculously was unharmed. His horse got shot out from under him. He grabbed another horse. That horse was shot out from under him, and he was unscathed. I would call that providence, that God protected this man. Now, there was an Indian chief at that battle, and he wrote his view of what happened. He said, "I am a chief and ruler over my tribes. My influence extends to the waters of the Great Lakes and to the far blue mountains. I have traveled a long way and weary path that I might see the young warrior of the great battle. It was on the day when the white man's blood mixed with the streams of our forest that I first beheld this chief Washington. I called to my young men and said, 'Mark yon tall and daring warrior. He is not of the redcoat tribe. He hath an Indian's wisdom.'" Amen. That's how the Americans beat the redcoats. We fought like the Indians. "The streams of our forest that I called to my young men and said, 'Mark yon tall and daring warrior. He is not of the redcoat tribe. He hath an Indian's wisdom, and his warriors fight as we do. Himself is alone, is exposed. Quick, let your aim be certain, and he dies.' Our rifles were leveled. Rifles which, but for you, knew not how to miss. All in vain. A power mightier far than we shielded you." So he wrote this to President Washington, at the time, General Washington. "But for you knew not how to miss." Oh, I'm sorry. "Seeing you were under the special guardship of the Great Spirit, we immediately ceased to fire at you. I am old and soon shall be gathered to the great council fire of my fathers in the land of shades. But ere I go, there is something bids me speak in the voice of prophecy. Listen, the Great Spirit protects that man, pointing at Washington, and guides his destiny. He will become the chief of nations, and people yet unborn will hail him as the founder of a mighty empire. I am come to pay homage to the man who is the particular favorite of heaven and who can never die in battle. General George Washington. Not only was he a great general, people loved him. They wanted to make him king. In fact, the King of England heard that George Washington was going to go at the end of the war and give up his commission to the government, showing and proving that America wanted civilian control of the government. We're gonna be like these dictators where the government rule. Then he was elected unanimously president twice. Imagine all the delegates, 100% of the delegates elected him unanimously twice. And there was no term limits. The people begged him not to give up. They wanted to make him a king. And he said, no. We're not going to be like England. We are by the people, for the people. One nation under God. There is no king but Christ. And he surrendered that power. One thing about power in human beings, that is a very rare thing for a man of power to give up power. In fact, I remember hearing Chuck Colson. He was went to jail for protecting Nixon, and Chuck Colson was very close to the president, and I think he went to jail for 2 years, and he became a Christian, wrote the book Born Again. And he said there's only one thing that drives men more than money. And he said that's power. And he was close to Nixon, and the power, that hunger for power made Nixon do what he did. So this man was so godly, after 2 terms, he gave up being president. The King of England again said, heard he was going to do this. He said, if this man does this, he's the greatest man that ever lived. He is the greatest man that ever lived. No man does this. Yet, President George Washington did this. And what do our kids learn about George Washington? He owned slaves. He owned slaves. The truth is, in George Washington's day, it was common. Slavery was common. There were more slaves in Africa. There were more slaves in Asia. There was more slaves in South America than there was in the United States. George Washington inherited slaves when his parents died at age 11. And he was self-taught. He stopped going to school and he was self-taught. But his views started changing about slavery. And in his will, he freed all his slaves and paid for the rest of their lives by his estate. He was a rich man. His estate supported the slaves. And his vice president, you don't hear about this, his vice president, John Adams, tried to abolish slavery. He became our second president, John Adams. He tried to abolish slavery. He did everything he could to end slavery, our second president. And he failed. He wasn't able to do it. But his son, John Quincy Adams, our sixth president, tried. He failed. So instead of just giving up, again, the humility of these men, he ran for congressman, like a local House of Representatives. And in the House of Representatives, he gave speech after speech after speech, calling slavery evil and saying we are a Christian nation, we need to free the slaves. And there was so much argument that the Congress made a rule called the gag rule, that you couldn't say the word slavery in Congress because they were saying it was settled. We're not going to talk about this. Well, John Quincy Adams, with the American rebellious spirit, got up in Congress every day and said, slavery, 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 slavery. You are not going to forget that slavery is evil. And he was censured, like we just censored Santos. He kept getting censured, but he kept doing it. He kept reminding the people, we are Christians and slavery is wrong. Well, John Quincy Adams, in one of his long speech, had a stroke right on the House of Representative floor. Died right there. And the Speaker of the House said, do I have any volunteers to take care of this man's estate, and take care of the burial and everything? And a young congressman no one ever heard of raised his hand. And this young congressman had been listening to John Quincy Adams. And he says, I'll take care of him. I'll take care of his estate. I'll take care of his funeral. I'll talk to his family. That young congressman's name was Abraham Lincoln. Again, when Abraham Lincoln became president, slavery was common. The word slave actually comes from the word Slavic. The Slavic people were mostly slaves. There were more Slavics that were slaves than anyone. And Slavics are the modern day Polish people. So there was more white slaves than black slaves. It wasn't a racist thing. It was a human nature, a fallen, sinful human nature thing. That people with power enslaved people with less power. Blacks enslaved blacks in Africa. Asians enslaved Asians. This was the world we lived in. It was evil, but it was common. But what was uncommon was for a leader of a great nation to call it evil. And that's just what Abraham Lincoln did. He called slavery evil. He said, if slavery isn't evil, nothing is. And now, England had already abolished slavery at this time, but no nation did what America did. It was not common for free men to die for slaves, and that's what America did. Hundreds of thousands of white men who were free fought and died to free black slaves. This is what makes America great. This is what makes America exceptional. We're not saying America is perfect. We're saying America is exceptional. America is great. And there was a French philosopher who came to America during this time. And he said, America is great because America is good. And if America ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. My 3 youngest children became public school teachers this year. One's in the inner city and 2 are in a suburban town, I guess you would call it. And all 3 of them tell me they were stunned and appalled that no one stands for the national anthem anymore. No one remember your kids stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance? No one does that anymore. Not even the teachers. They stand, my kids know. They know the truth about this country, so they stand and they say out loud by themselves the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. But I guess they can't force the kids to stand. So I told them this story. Again, I've told them this story before, and I've told you guys this story many times, on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. But I'm going to tell it again. And I told them, tell your kids this and make them want to stand. The story of Fort McHenry, a great patriotic story. It was the War of 1812, and we're fighting the British again, and they came back with a vengeance. They were so angry that this little peasant country of America defeated the greatest military in history during the Revolutionary War. So they came back with a vengeance. And at the Battle of Fort McHenry, there was a British naval ship there for prisoner exchange, and a young lawyer named Francis Scott Keyes drove a little rowboat out to the ship to speak to the captain about the exchange. And he said, I got this many prisoners, you got that many, let's just do a complete swap and exchange. And the captain said, no, that's not what's going to happen. That's not what's going to happen, Francis. You see all those ships coming? As soon as they get here, on my command, they're going to bomb your fort. And Francis Scott Key says, we have women and children there. You can't do that. And he's like, well, you see that big flag over there flying? If you lower the flag, we'll stop bombing, and then you surrender. So you let us know you're surrendering by lowering that American flag, and we'll stop bombing. So Francis Scott Key says, can I see the prisoners? So he goes down, and he sees his prisoners hungry, dirty, depressed, chained up. And he tells them what's going on. And they're like, Francis, we can't surrender. This is a pivotal battle. They can't surrender. He said, I know. So Francis got keys, said, let me go up and see if I can talk some sense to his captain. Captain wouldn't give up on his plan. He said, nope, you tell them. They lower the flag. He goes, in fact, I sent some of my sailors over there and they told them this. So they already know. They know the deal. And they just have a few minutes here to lower that flag. So sure enough, they don't lower the flag. Captain gives an order to bomb the fort. They keep bombing the fort, and the soldiers are yelling up, Francis, does the flag still stand? And Francis is like, yes, it still stands. Then all through the night, they kept bombing, and the prisoners yelling, Francis, is the flag still standing? He's like, I don't know. All I can see is the rocket's red glare and the bombs bursting in air. I can't see it. It's too dark. And they're bombing. And Francis hears the captain say, has the flag gone down? And his first mate looks, he says, no, the flag is still standing. He's like, how's that bloody flag still standing? I want all weapons aimed at that flag. And they just start bombing the flag, trying to take the flag down themselves. And the first mates are yelling, is the flag still stands? He's like, I think so, but I really can't tell. The captain said he thinks it's up. But then it just got really dark, smoke everywhere. And they're yelling, Francis, does the flag still stand? He's like, I don't know, guys. I really don't know, man. And then by the dawn's early light, they yell, Francis, does the flag still stand? And Francis looks and sees our flag waving. And he says, yes, the flag still stands. And he hears the men praising God and thanking Jesus and yelling, hallelujah. And then he hears the captain say to the first mate, how is that bloody flag still standing? And the first mate looks and he's like, Captain, it's being held up by dead Americans. He's like, what? What do you mean? He's like, it's being held up by dead Americans. There's like a stack of 30 Americans dead. It seems like each one was holding it, got shot, fell down. Another one went on top of him, got killed, fell down. Our flag was being held up by dead Americans. And Francis Scott Key said he remembered at that moment something he heard George Washington say. George Washington said, the Christian American would rather die on his back than live on his knees. And then Francis Scott Keys wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. And we don't even know the whole thing because most of us don't know the whole thing because they won't even let our kids hear the whole thing. So I'm going to read you the whole Star-Spangled Banner right now. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave, on the shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence repose. What is that which the breeze over the towering steep, as it filthily blows, half conceals, half disclose? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected now shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh long may it wave, over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And where is that band so vauntly swore that the havoc of war and the battle confusion, a home and a country, shall leave us no more? Their blood was washed up, their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave. And that's why they don't say this. They don't let our kids hear this because we mentioned slave. We don't want the kids to know they were slaves. From the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just. Another reason they don't have it is because of this line. And this be our motto: in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless America.